Welcome to Mind Over Matter, where we spotlight the real stories behind radical transformation. Today's guest is Ben McQueen, founder of Karuna Kava Bar and Beverage Company, and a man who turned his recovery into a mission. After battling alcoholism from the age of 12 and facing countless setbacks, Ben discovered a traditional South Pacific remedy, kava, that becomes his path to peace. Now, through Karuna, he is not only redefining his sobriety, he is creating community, healing, and connection, one bowl at a time. If you have ever struggled to find the healthy alternative to old habits, this one's for you. So, Ben, your story is powerful. Can you take us back to when Kava entered your life and how it changed everything after so many recovery attempts?
Yeah, it's actually kind of an amazing moment in my life. I had struggled with alcohol for a really long time. I had a problem with alcohol, as you said, from about the age of 12, well into my mid 20s. So I'd been battling with it for about 15 years. At that point, I used to steal alcohol when I was young, and when I got older, I got into partying. And when I was introduced to kava, I was actually homeless. I had drank myself into a place where I didn't have any money at all. I luckily had gotten into a halfway house, which is kind of a spot for people to start building their life back up after burning it down. And some of these guys at this halfway house were drinking kava. They were having a fun time. They liked to hang out and go to this bar in town that didn't serve alcohol. It served kava. And so at a point where I was thinking about, or I was feeling that feeling that I had felt so many times before, where I was feeling anxious, I was feeling uncomfortable, and I was thinking about drinking alcohol again, I went and I decided to try kava instead. And I just had an amazing experience. I wasn't inebriated from drinking the kava. I wasn't taken away from my character or taken away from myself, but I had fun. I laughed. I met some friends. I was introduced to a community where people were still getting together and socializing, but they weren't engaging in the destructive behaviors that I'd been so used to doing. And so that was how I first got introduced to it. And it was really a love of the entire culture from the very beginning.
Right, makes sense. So, what did Kava give you that nothing else had before?
I think mostly what kava gave me was hope. Uh, I had I had been living a kind of a life that didn't have a lot of hope in it. I didn't see a way forward, and I also didn't have healthy coping skills with which I could improve my life, that I could use to manage the way that I felt. And so when I started uh, drinking kava in the traditional way, I found a coping tool that I could use, that I could turn to if I felt a craving for alcohol, or if I felt lonely or I felt disconnected. I had a place as well, through the kava bar, the where other people were going to be coming and hanging out. And I found a new way of life, because I'd never experienced anything that reduced my anxiety, but didn't create a cycle of addiction. And so with kava, it's not physically addictive. There's no withdrawal from it. So when you stop drinking kava, you don't get sick. You don't start to feel like you need more all the time, which is what would happen with alcohol. I would get stuck in this cycle where I would try to stop, but then I would have all this anxiety and feel very sick, and I would almost need to keep drinking in order to keep functioning. Whereas with kava, it was something I could turn to. It was almost like a safe port in a storm, like I could drink kava and reliably know that I wasn't going to damage myself, damage my life, hurt my relationships. And in fact, what I was finding was that when I was drinking kava, I was making friends with people that had like-minded goals. They didn't want to hurt their own lives. They were People were turning to kava as an alternative, and so a lot of these people were very like-minded in that they were looking for recovery, or they were looking for a better way to live. And really, that connection is the most important thing that I found through kava, because I don't know if kava would have been helpful to me if I drank it in a vacuum. It was the community of people that I was introduced to through kava that has really been the most beautiful blessing in my life.
That's such a grounding realization. Sometimes healing doesn't come with fanfare, it comes with calm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. So, there's still a lot of mystery around kava. For someone new to it, what is it exactly and how does it support mental clarity, social ease, and sobriety?
It's a great question. There's kava is a new thing for Western societies, but arguably kava is one of the oldest agricultural plants that has been grown by human beings. For over 3,000 years, the people of the South Pacific Islands have been growing and utilizing and really genetically modifying kava through natural selective breeding processes. Uh, People have been selectively breeding different species of kava together to achieve certain qualities longer than they've been doing so with corn or maize or potatoes or pretty much any other agricultural product. It's the people of the South Pacific were really groundbreaking in the arena of genetic modification and in the way that they were growing kava and seeking out certain qualities. So what is kava? Kava is a plant. It's a Piper methysticum. It's a member of the black pepper family of plants. And kava, it's a very beautiful plant. It's like kind of a stocky shrub that has these beautiful heart shaped leaves that dangle down. And but really, the power of the kava plant is in the basal stalk, like the big chunky stalk at the bottom, and in the roots that grow out from the plant. And within those roots of the kava plant, there are kavalactones. Kavalactones are naturally occurring compounds, like cavein, dihydrocavein, yangonin, desmethoxyangonin, methysticin, dihydromethysticin. These compounds act as anxiolytics. They relieve stress and anxiety. They're mood boosters. They make you feel kind of cheerful, very happy and talkative and mildly euphoric, but not in a way that's like very overwhelming. It's just a very natural, uplifting sensation. And it also makes you feel very social, which is great. And it's also a physical muscle relaxant. So when you drink kava, you kind of lose some tension in your body. A lot of people find that this is helpful for like certain pain management, whether it's knee pain, back pain, joint pain. But all of these effects coalesce into a beverage that is very helpful for social situations. It makes it very easy to connect with one another. Here at our kava bar, I notice it all the time, which is that in a lot of normal bars, you see like people sitting at tables, people sitting at the bar. People aren't getting together and like really socializing. And here at our bar, you'll see people that have never met before. They're drinking kava in two different areas of the building. And then all of a sudden they look over at each other and go, "Hey, how's it going?" And all of a sudden a friendship is formed. And I see this happen over and over again. So that's where I think kava is, very beneficial as a tool for recovery, because addiction, in my opinion, and I consider myself an expert on this because of how long I've dealt with it, but the drug isn't the problem. Whatever the alcohol, the opiates, whatever you're taking, that's not actually the problem. The problem is you're not connected. You are fundamentally disconnected from any form of meaningful and beneficial relationship. You feel alone. Addiction is a very isolating thing. You feel shame. you feel a lot of things that continue to drive you back to this drug of choice that you feel helps momentarily alleviate the feelings that you have about yourself of shame and disgust and self-hatred and pain. Really, it comes down to you're trying to cover up pain. And so kava is great because from my experience, kava, it helps alleviate that mental anguish of the anxiety and the stress, the sensations themselves. It also acts as a social lubricant of sorts, if you will, in a similar way to alcohol, or maybe that some people find their drug of choice as a social lubricant. But like I said before, it because it acts as a something you can swap out for alcohol. Or I've even seen people do it for more destructive drugs like methamphetamine or opiates. You swap it with whatever it is that you're using as a destructive substance. And all of a sudden you're dealing with a substance that's not destructive, that's not debilitating, it's not causing you to pass out or lose track of who you are, and it's also connecting you with people that are like-minded and are also on a similar path of maybe not even recovery from addiction, but self-improvement, life improvement. Kava isn't just a drink for people like myself who've struggled with addiction. Kava is a beverage that's has vast uh benefit for I think everybody, because most of us are looking for a way to be less stressed, happier, more connected, and also from a cultural standpoint, it's just a fascinating tradition to take part in. And so, but for people like myself, it is uniquely helpful because of the way that the plant itself is alleviating some of the symptoms that would normally drive you back to your addiction.
Absolutely. So, are there any misconceptions or hesitations you hear often?
Yeah, there are. In just like any plant, it needs to be used properly. You don't want to consume products that are made with the upper portions, the aerial portions of the plant, like the leaves and the stems. Those portions of the plant contain compounds like pipermethystin and flavonoid B, which on their own actually have very intriguing medical potential within the pharmaceutical field as anti-cancer agents and stuff like that. But if you were to drink them as a tea, like we make our kava, this stuff right here, it would make you feel not kind of sick and nauseous. But unfortunately, back in the 1990s, there was a medication called Laytan. It was developed by Schwab Pharmaceutical, and Laytan was an acetone extracted kava drug. Essentially, they took a bunch of kava plant material, not just the roots, but also the stems and the leaves that contain impurities, and they used acetone to extract all the active compounds from that plant material, and then they concentrated that. And unfortunately, that caused people to have some liver damage issues back in from 1998ish to 2002. And and so that's kind of created this misconception that kava is bad for your liver, which just fundamentally is not true. Traditionally prepared, water prepared kava made with quality, noble kava root that has been grown for human consumption for thousands of years, it's not damaging to your liver. But the ways that I like to kind of give people an example is, so if I eat an apple, it's a delicious treat. I give apples to my children. I have three beautiful children now, and they love apples. But if I take 100 pounds of apple seeds and I run acetone through it and extract the active compound from the apple seed, I've created cyanide, and it's going to be a deadly poison. So kava needs to be respected. I think the best way that you can enjoy kava is in the traditional fashion, meaning you prepare it with water or get it from us. We've prepared it with water. We have vetted sources for our kava root where it's very high quality. It's not tainted with the aerial portions of the plant. And the kava industry in the United States is like very good these days. So there hasn't been a single case of liver damage in the United States in like 25 years in relation to traditionally prepared kava. So that's, I would say, the biggest misconception. Another misconception is that kava gets you drunk. Uh, Kava doesn't get you drunk in the same way that alcohol does. We call it getting rooted. It does produce an effect that is socially and emotionally and mentally enjoyable, physically enjoyable, but it's not a drunkenness. I've I've been drunk a lot of times. And when I am drunk, I take actions that hurt myself and my family, and I say things to people that I don't mean, and I stumble and I look like an idiot, and I make bad decisions for myself. Whereas with kava, when I drink kava, I'm stressed out about a situation, or I'm in conflict with somebody. If I were to drink alcohol, conflict worse. But if I, for instance, have with my wife and I drink, I go to a place of being centered or mindful. I almost always go back to her and say, "Sweetie, you're right. I'm wrong. Let's not argue about this. Let's come back to a place where we can work together to overcome whatever issue it is that we feel we're facing." And so kava, it's not a drunkenness. It's a return to calm. That's very socially enjoyable.
That's eye opening. It's not a ping, it's about reconnecting without the chaos. So let's talk, Karuna. What inspired you to grow from farmer's market to launching a full fledged kava bar and eventually a beverage company?
Yeah, that was it. And I tell every young entrepreneur or somebody who has an idea, sometimes you have to start where you're at. And when I first, really, my son was born, my son Finn was born, and that was an eye-opening moment where I realized I wanted to do something bigger for not just myself but also for my family. And I'd worked in restaurants for a decade at that point, and so I decided I wanted to start my own kava venture. I wanted to help people discover the same joy and the same uh, way of living that I had discovered through kava. And so we moved to Boise, kind of sight unseen. I looked for an area that did not have a kava bar, but did have great outdoor activities and a growing economy, and a need for a kava bar. And so there, I found Boise, and we moved here. And in the beginning, I wanted to start a kava bar so badly, but I didn't have any money. I didn't have really at that time the skills to operate a brick and mortar business. And so I just started at farmers markets. I signed up for a farmers market. I got a tent. I got some jars, and I bought some kava, and I made some kava in my kitchen, and just started selling it at farmers markets to anybody that would try it out. I was still working at a restaurant, so I would bring kava to the restaurant and try and sell it to all the cooks in the kitchen, and try to sell it on Facebook Marketplace, and really just try to connect with anybody who could benefit from it, and try and share this beautiful tradition that had been shared with me. And then the farmers markets built and built, and we kind of, through these farmers markets, developed a product line, these kava pouches, which are all ready to drink kava, in a form that is naturally flavored. So kava is the Tongan word for bitter. It's not something that a lot of people in Western society think is uh, delicious. It's kind of bitter and earthy. It's a root tea, so it tastes like that. So we've kind of moved the flavor in a nice direction with some of our products. And so we launched that product online and started selling it across the United States. And after we started selling it online and getting it out into the community that way, and also selling it in other retailers, we were able to develop enough interest to get some investment so we could open the kava bar. Because for me, the kava bar was always the main goal because, like I said before, like the pouches are awesome. It's a great way to experience kava. It's a great way to try it if you don't have a kava bar in your area. But really, the most beneficial thing about kava is being able to drink it with your friends and with people that are about to be your friends. And so that's where the kava bar really became the central hub of this community here in Boise for the kava scene and for the non-alcoholic beverage scene. And so it's funny to think about how it developed from just one little tent at a farmer's market to now we sell kava in all 50 states. We ship kava to Alaska. We ship kava back to Hawaii, which is funny because we buy kava from Hawaii and then make it here and then send it back to Hawaii. And we also have people come from all over the United States where they've been to other kava bars and they've come to our kava bar and they immediately feel like they're at home because every kava bar it's a community, but it's also a national and global community of people that all are living within this system where we're not drinking alcohol, but we're connecting over a beverage that we have a shared common enjoyment of. And it's just amazing to see people. We've had people from Tonga and from Fiji and Vanuatu that have come to our kava bar and they feel at home because we're trying to keep the tradition of kava alive here, and it's just beautiful to watch that grow and expand, and it's growing all the time, and we hope to keep spreading that message.
That's amazing. So, what kind of community has grown around your space?
Yeah, so it's I like to joke that our kava bar is kind of like the midway point between an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and a dive bar. It's not a traditional recovery community. It's really a safe space because we don't serve alcohol. And so people that are sober curious, or maybe they just want to not drink as many days of the week, or maybe they just want to try something new, this is a place where they come and can gather and meet with friends and enjoy socializing without the toxic effects of alcohol. And so the community that's been developing here, it's extremely diverse. We have people of all different races and cultures and religions and sexual identities and uh, gender identities. It's a place where we all come together, and people that maybe normally wouldn't be interacting together or wouldn't normally make friends, we meet in this space and we find a common familiarity with one another, and that's become really beautiful because now for a lot of people Karuna is a place where you can come and you can reliably know that you can meet a friend here, you can make a friend here, you can laugh here. This place is filled with laughter all the time. It's a joyous community. It's a place where i I used to not really enjoy going to work when I worked at restaurants. And when I go to work now, and same with everybody that works here feels the same way, which is super cool, is that you're excited to go to work. You're excited to come in because you know it's going to be fun. It's really it it all boils down to it's all about having fun, true, genuine fun. And I've never worked in a place where the bartenders would fight over shifts like they do here because everybody wants to come work because it's that kind of community where even the people that are working here are key to the community. So it's something you don't see a lot in modern society. I think we've become very disconnected with our screens and our phones and our social connection through the internet, but here we have a truly face-to-face socially connected community that people seem to really enjoy. I know I do.
Yeah, that's the kind of vibe we need more of. Places where people feel safe, seen, and sober by choice.
I agree.
Mhm. So, for someone listening who is just beginning to explore alternatives to alcohol, what's one small step they can take today?
Well, one small step that you can take today if you're trying out or wanting to try out alternatives to alcohol is one to have hope that they are out there and that recovery is possible. Whether you use kava as a tool to recovery, or you use traditional 12-step recovery, or you use a spiritual experience, there you can recover whether or not you have access to kava. So I mean, to be clear, kava is a great tool, but if you're somewhere and you can't get kava, you can still recover. You can still get better. So just understand that. Now, if you're looking to try kava as a way to as an alternative to alcohol, as a recovery tool, I would suggest going to karunakava.com. That's KARUNAKAVA.com, and check out the products that we've got there. We're running a summer sale right now, so you can use the code SUMMER to save 20% off. So try out some of our products, try out a few, see which ones work for you. Look into the kava scene in your own community. See if there's a kava bar in your area. Go check it out. Go see how it is. But most importantly, have hope and don't despair, because it can and it does get better if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and do the next right thing.
That's such a gift, offering a doorway, not a demand. You make healing feel human.
It is a human process, and we are all humans, and as humans we make mistakes, we get lost sometimes, but that doesn't mean we can't find our path again.
Absolutely. Ben, thank you for being that kind of leader who leads with humility and heart. And to our listeners, healing doesn't mean isolation. There are alternatives, there is community, and there is always another way. Until next time, stay open, stay curious, and remember, you can rewrite your story one mindful sip at a time.